Well, hey guys, and welcome to week 5 of our We Over Me small group series. And throughout this series, what we've been doing is we've been studying the goal of a healthy church, which is to be Jesus to the world that he came to save. In the 2 letters that we'll look through today, we'll see that these early churches were fulfilling that goal. The second letter in Revelation was addressed to the church at Smyrna. It's in Revelation chapter 2, verses 8 through 11, and it says this, "And to the angel of the church in Smyrna write, the words of the first and the last who died and came to life. I know your tribulation and your poverty, but you are rich. And the slander of those who say that they are Jews and are not, but they are synagogue of Satan. Do not fear what you are about to suffer. Behold, the devil is about to throw some of you into prison, that you may be tested. And for 10 days you will have tribulation. Be faithful. Be faithful unto death, and I will give you the crown of life. He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. The one who conquers will not be hurt by the second death." And then in Revelation chapter 3, verses 7 through 13, there's the letter that's written to the church in Philadelphia, which says this, "And to the angel of the church in Philadelphia write, the words of the Holy One, the true One, who has the key of David, who opens and no one will shut, who shuts and no one opens. I know your works. Behold, I have set before you an open door, which no one is able to shut. I know that you have but little power, and yet you have kept my word and have not denied my name. Behold, I will make those of the synagogue of Satan who say that they are Jews and are not, but lie. Behold, I will make them come and bow down before your feet, and they will learn that I have loved you. Because you have kept my word about patient endurance, I will keep you from the hour of trial that is coming on the whole world, to try those who dwell on the earth. I am coming soon. Hold fast what you have, so that no one may seize your crown. The one who conquers, I will make him a pillar in the temple of my God. Never shall he go out of it. And I will write on him the name of my God and the name of the city of my God, the new Jerusalem, which comes down from my God out of heaven, and my own new name. He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches." Now, you'll notice that these 2 churches received only praise from Jesus. So let's talk about Smyrna first. Now, this city is known for its beautiful architecture and prosperity. It was a difficult place to live for the early church, though. The people of Smyrna were especially loyal to Rome and had built temples to worship their leaders. Though Jews likely hated their Roman conquerors, they hated Christians even more. Christians in Smyrna faced intense persecution because they worshiped Jesus of Nazareth as the Jewish Messiah. Jews likely wouldn't do business with Christians, and they tried to stir up trouble for Christians with the local Roman authorities. Now, can you just imagine feeling completely alone and vulnerable, contending daily to keep your faith pure and strong in the face of ridicule on the best day, with unchecked persecution on your worst day? Their faith in Jesus was costing them dearly. And the Greek word for affliction meant serious trouble or a burden that crushes. And this word choice helps us to understand that what they were going through wasn't a minor problem. Their poverty was extreme. Jesus told the church that he knew all they had been enduring. They may have felt overlooked, persecuted, and also impoverished, but Jesus said that they were rich. Now, I don't know about you, but it doesn't sound like they were flush with cash, all right? So what did Jesus mean? Well, this church may not have had much in an earthly bank, but they were stacking up treasures in the heavenly one, all right? When the one that really matters and the one that counts. And like Smyrna, Philadelphia received only praise in their letter as well. The church at Philadelphia was a group of Christ followers who may have felt invisible. Some scholars believe that they had likely been expelled from the local synagogue. Now, it's hard for us to understand their dilemma there, because if we were to leave a church, there's likely one just around the corner within driving distance that will meet our needs, and also they'll welcome us warmly. But our first generation brothers and sisters didn't experience church like that. The Christians in Philadelphia had nowhere to go. They were alone. In verse 8, Jesus stated that they had little power or little strength. This statement was not a slight. It was actually a praise. They may have been low in number, low in influence and resources, but despite that, and in the face of opposition, they remained faithful. Over and over in Scripture, we see God using the weak, the overlooked, the marginalized, and the unimpressive to accomplish his purposes. This small but mighty congregation in Philadelphia had not embraced heresy or fallen into disobedience as other churches that we've studied had done. They remained loyal, they remained faithful, and they remained obedient. One thing I love about Scripture is that it isn't simply a feel-good story, edited with only the highlights and the heroes. No, there's more than just a little bit of suffering in this. And I'm glad to see these examples in Scripture to know I'm not the only one who goes through hard times or lives in obscurity. Because if we're not careful, we'll only see suffering as a punishment or as a rebuke from God because of our disobedience. Sometimes when we're going through something that's difficult in our lives, we fall away or we pull away from God. And maybe it's because we fail to take into account God's complete character. We miss the full understanding of God's goodness and how he demonstrates his goodness toward his people. God's goodness or grace toward us is unmerited, right? Meaning we don't deserve it. We don't earn it. He isn't kind toward us because we are worthy. He's kind toward us because he is good and he is worthy. This matters because if blessing isn't about us, then suffering isn't either. Granted, some suffering we endure is self-inflicted, right? It's the natural result of the harvest. We reap what we sow. But that's not the suffering we're talking about here. We're talking about the kind of suffering that we endure that has no explanation, suffering that at times seems a bit unfair. When we walk through those times, we need to remember if blessing is meant to show us that he is worthy, suffering is meant to show us that he is trustworthy. He will be with us. He will teach us. He will refine us for our good and for his glory. And just as Smyrna was called to suffer, Philadelphia was called to insignificance. Some days we'll be frustrated and we aren't celebrated because we aren't celebrated for the efforts that we put out there. We'll get angry that there doesn't always seem to be a payoff for us staying on course and doing the hard things. We're obsessed with instant gratification. We want likes and comments and shares on our social media. We want recognition. The call to the church at Philadelphia was a call to be okay with being seen by Jesus and by Jesus alone. And the question here isn't, am I okay to live a life of insignificance? The real question is Jesus enough for me? The life of suffering and obscurity isn't nearly as neat and tidy as it is teaching it, right? Suffering and obscurity, those things are inevitable and hard, but they're not forever. And they're not hopeless. Jesus' message to Smyrna was that he could see their suffering, and to Philadelphia that he could see their works. So let's not miss this. Jesus was pleased. The churches at Smyrna and Philadelphia did not receive rebukes. Jesus honored their suffering and their perseverance and their faithfulness. You see, suffering and obscurity are a megaphone for what we believe. Suffering and obscurity remind us and declare to a watching world that nothing, no thing compares to being seen, known, and loved by Jesus. This is meant to be the message of and to the church. His love is better than life. In seasons when we face suffering and may feel forgotten, the letters to Smyrna and Philadelphia are compassionate but powerful reminders that Jesus sees us and our suffering, and he intends to sustain us through it. And it's for his glory as we pursue we over me.